I want you to take one finger and put it up onto your eyebrow and feel the ridge under there. Now, lift your eyebrows up as far as you can like you're super surprised and feel where they are. Now, chances are they're up further, but they're still like on the upper part of this brow ridge. They're not way up here. They're still like maybe they started here and now they're right here, just slightly higher. Okay? Now I want you to scrunch your eyebrows down like you're angry or an upset baby. Okay, so that creates a bulge actually right at the top of the eye socket. So feel how your eyebrows are now actually kind of right over the eye socket. Okay, so this is the area that you have to place your brows depending on your sculpt, but they will not be way up here. They'll stay in this area. What, you don't have a skull in your house? All right, so let's look at a couple of kits to see if we can find where the brows are supposed to go. So here's a Susu. It's actually pretty easy to find this one, or we can feel it. It's, you know, poking right out. Some of the sculptors will have the brow itself as a bulge that makes it a lot easier to find. So Susu, I would put the brows right there. Let's check out Maddie. Now Maddie's a lot harder to find her brows. There's not like an obvious thing sticking out right here. But if you kind of turn it to the side and you look at it with, you know, directional light, and you feel kind of the outer edge of the brow bone here. And so that will follow here. So I'm not feeling it here, but I am feeling it here, and we can follow that brow bone in. So right there is where her eyebrows should be. This one, I believe, is a Sansa. So here's an example where the eyebrows are being raised way up high, and you can feel them. They're right here. There's a bunch of wrinkles above the forehead, but we know the brows we know they're not going to be way up here, so it's got to be down here on this first wrinkle. Okay. Who else do we have? Let's try Sammy. Okay, you can kind of see it's got a little bit of a hint of where the brow would go right there. Let's look at, here's a Noah asleep, and you can feel the brow right there. And lastly is Levi, which I find him to be probably the most challenging, because there's nothing obvious that says here's where the brow should be. But from our skull exercise, we know that it's not going to be here where you know, the face kind of becomes concave right here. So we know that right under that concave spot is where it comes back out to the brow bone. So I would put his brows right here. And you can, well, you can sort of feel it, but yeah, and that might seem low, but that'll look natural. All right, so let me start with just a basic eyebrow shape. And the way I like to think about the direction of the eyebrows is to picture two alligators. So if you picture two alligators facing each other having a conversation, you'll remember which direction the kind of the V shapes of the eyebrows go. Now let me show you a little closer how to do this kind of an eyebrow. Okay, so you have your basic shape. So I would draw this very lightly on the brow bone and draw very lightly on the other brow bone, and you can make this swoopier or less. But you draw the first shapes very lightly, so that if you don't like the shape, you can erase it. If it's Prisma or if it's paint, have a wet sponge handy to erase it. And once you have the placement that you like, then you can draw the detail on top. So the biggest thing to remember with this style of eyebrows is the lines are long and they're almost parallel to this first line. These long kind of parallel lines like this. In fact, once you get up here, you can make some light lines that kind of come up to the hairline. And then the same thing on the bottom. Very shallow angled lines. Okay, again, just long, super shallow angle. As much as you can. So practice this a lot on paper before you do it on vinyl. And usually what I'll do is end up going back and kind of shading in the middle line like this, or at least just drawing over it. Okay. So you'll notice this makes the shape of the alligators' mouths and similar to this, where they're having a pleasant conversation. Now let me show you what not to do with this style of eyebrow. Okay, what you want to avoid is short lines that come out at a wider angle. Okay, if I were to do this at a wider angle with short lines, okay, so this is what we want to avoid. All right, so what we have here is two alligators yelling at each other. We want to avoid that. What we want is alligators having a nice dinner conversation, politely talking to each other, not screaming at each other. So that's the first kind of basic alligator eyebrow. So once you have the basic shape, you can do some variations. Like if you want a little thicker eyebrow, you can kind of swoop the ends so the ends curve, but it's still shallow angled when it meets the line. And then if I'm going to make it thicker on top, I usually make it thinner on the bottom. Or you could do it the other way around. Okay, and then I'll darken the outer edge where the hairs would come together. And then instead of just having a line, I'll add some shorter hairs here, shorter, so that it makes more of a gradient instead of a stark line. So that's one option. So the second eyebrow I want to show you is called the vegetarian alligator. And it's slightly more challenging than the other one, but it's a great one to learn. So the thing about the vegetarian alligator is it's just like the regular alligator in the back. So there's an alligator and he's in a field of grass. This is a vegetarian alligator, so he actually eats grass. So at the front of the eyebrow is the field. So here's the grass poking up, growing upward like grass does. But as it gets closer and closer to the alligator's mouth, it's getting sucked into his mouth. He's kind of inhaling this grass, and it's bending the tops of the grass towards the mouth until the grass actually goes into the mouth. So that's the vegetarian alligator. Okay, here's the eyebrow under the magnifying glass, and I'm just going to take a little bit. I just kind of ripped off a bit of this Prismacolor eraser so that I can lighten up the eyebrows. I'm just going over it very lightly. Oh, and before I lighten it, let me show you how, I think you could see how the little hairs, it's very light, but it goes up to the hairline. And notice how it's darker in the towards the outer edge. It's a little too dark right here. I will take that out. So I just want a very light eyebrow on this one. So it can be helpful to see pictures of real baby eyebrows. I imagine every Reborn artist has Googled baby eyebrows and come up with Google results like this. So I searched online for high resolution baby pictures, and then found ones that were really close up around the eyes, and was able to compile these into kind of a lot of examples. So it's interesting to look at these examples because you'll learn things like, for instance, the eyebrows aren't always the same on each side. In fact, most of them have some little differences. Some of them are really interesting that they have, near the ends, they have a lot more hair on top and hardly any on the bottom. Or it might be the opposite way and just a little on top. It's just different varieties of eyebrows. So I think this can be really helpful to print out and trace. That's what I did. I went through and printed it out and then traced. Now each one, imagine like where you're going to put your line and how far that line goes. Like notice where that line stops and where it turns into a field that gets sucked into an alligator. Notice the angles, like how sharp is the top angle and how sharp is the bottom angle. Yeah, and then also notice if there's some areas that look to be shaded darker, like this one, the middle of the brow is really shaded darker. So yeah, that's what I would advise is print it out, trace it, maybe get another piece of paper and try and draw it. So trace and then try. And then I would have another printed out copy not drawn on to choose from. So you can look through and think about what eyebrows might look good on the sculpt that you're working on. That makes it kind of more fun because eyebrows become, rather than something to dread, they are an additional creative choice that you get to make. So this collection of eyebrows I put together into a file that you can download, and I'll put that link in the description. There's no charge, just go download it. And if you find it useful, then maybe give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, and even leave a comment if you want to have the whole trifecta. That helps my channel to be more visible so that more artists can get some help with eyebrows, because I noticed there's just a lot of misery out there and a lot of dread when it comes to eyebrows. And so we don't want to be stressed and have dread when we're painting. We want to be relaxed and feel creative and excited about it coming together the way we want it to look. So the next tutorial I've started doing, they take me a while though, how to photograph your baby so that it looks the actual color it is. So we'll learn about white balance, and we will answer the question whether you always get a natural skin tone. If you're out in the sun or an overcast day, is that the magic answer? What is the best way to make sure we have the right colored baby in the photograph?